And thanks, Crystal, for that. And we're going to dive in right into our conversation on startups. And I have an interesting panel with me here this afternoon. And let me introduce, going by the lady first, we have Joanne Muridi, the co-founder at MyInsure.
Yes.
Many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And we also have with us Johnni Kjelsgaard. I don't know if I pronounce it right, the CEO for GrowthAfrica. I'm sure by the end of the interview I'll have the right pronunciation.
Good.
And sitting off on the far end we have Johnni Kjelsgaard, who is the coordinator for the Nairobi Innovation Week Startups. Many thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me start off from the far end, John. Well, this particular Innovation Week comes at a time where startups have been an integral part in Africa in terms of driving the economic agenda. Perhaps what's in store for startups this year?
This year we look at a Nairobi Innovation Week that is much more, where we have startups being more visible, being more discoverable by investors, discoverable by partners, potential partners, discoverable by customers. And potentially some of the startups should get investment, or at least begin conversations about investments, which could mature a couple of months later.
All right. And Jody, it's been an interesting journey for startups when it comes to accessing capital, and I'm sure even Joanne will chip in on this.
Yeah.
What is the scenario right now? Are we seeing more capital flowing through to Africa, or is it just the same old story? We have so many ideas, but we cannot finance them.
I think it's a little bit of both. The venture capital scene, especially in Kenya, to some degree in South Africa and Nigeria as well, has really developed leaps and bounds in the last 5 years. We're seeing an incredible amount of money flowing into Kenya, and a lot of that money is not finding a home. So the second part of your statement is absolutely correct as well. There is probably an undersupply of really good startups, early stage businesses, who can actually absorb the amount of money that these investors are seeking to find a home for.
All right.
Part of that problem is also that a lot of investors are really seeking to invest $500,000, $1 million and above. So when when entrepreneurs are trying to get started, they may only need $50,000 or $100,000 or a couple of $100,000, and there are very few players who are playing in that area.
John?
I think it's a very ripe time for technological growth in the continent, specifically in Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa, because that's where most of the investors are coming. So this is the best time to have, yes, the Silicon Savannah.
All right.
So we're very lucky to be in this field at this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And talk to us about what your entity does, and are you upbeat about the upcoming Innovation Week?
Yes, we are. We're very excited about it. So what MyInsure does is we build software solutions for the insurance ecosystem. This includes the insurance companies, the insurance intermediaries, the insurance service providers, and also the insurance consumers. So what we want to get from the Nairobi Innovations Week is funding, possibly, partnerships that are mutually beneficial for the partners that we want to get, and exposure to the market, and to also see where to gauge ourselves in the technology we're in the field that we're in, sorry.
We do hope you'll secure some funding.
Thank you.
I can see someone from GrowthAfrica smiling.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly is, and I think John will also agree with that. If we can get a few introductions going and companies like MyInsure to start those conversations with investors, then I think we've gone a great distance.
All right, and let's cross over back to John. We're also seeing a lot of external capital coming through, and from a layman's point of view, who would be interested in tapping into this capital that is flowing into the country, are there specific sessions that will come up in this Innovation Week, and how many people are we looking at in terms of the angel investors coming through?
First, allow me to comment about the issue of a lot of capital flowing to this country.
All right.
There's a bit of a caveat we need to put in there, in that Yes, there is capital, but converting that capital to actual absorption by our startups is a bit of a problem there.
Yes.
And a bit of it associated with the amount of money, how ready some of the startups are, and how much they can absorb, to the extent that not too many investors are putting smaller money like 1 million or 5 million.
Yeah.
But that said, and we're also trying to tone down the message of funding for just the sake of it, because funding itself is not, it's not a very reliable indicator of startup success. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that we want to emphasize a lot more for startups at the Nairobi Innovation Week is access to networks, so they can start having those connections, so that they can, those conversations about getting investment can start. It's like a dating game. Mm-hmm. It's one thing to meet a girl or a boy.
Sure.
Another thing for them to give you a second date. Mm-hmm. And another thing for you to get engaged at some point. Another thing to even get married. And now marriage is a long-term thing. Mm-hmm. So we want to tone down that, so that you actually get into that rhythm of engaging and eventually getting married. Mm-hmm. But for now, we want to emphasize the connections.
All right.
Yeah.
And I can see Johnny nodding to this. And is it a common thread we are seeing? A lot of startups, the main agenda has been, I just need seed capital.
Yeah, no, I think all of the entrepreneurs that we've helped through the last 7 years of our existence, every single one has kind of come to us and said, I just need money. And just needing money, unfortunately, is only half of the story, because what do you need that money for? Mm-hmm. And having a full understanding of what you need that money for, and the process of kind of preparing you for actually absorbing that money, is a very long journey. It takes a lot of commitment, and getting to that stage where investors are comfortable investing in you, that in itself is a relatively long journey. Investors are very reluctant to give you money without some proof of you mm-hmm. actually being able to take that money and turn it into something profitable.
All right. And I just want us to get closing thoughts from John. Mm-hmm. And I do agree with John's point when he talked about the issue around, it's not just about capital. Yeah. It's also about the networks you can create. Yeah. It's about the linkages. Mm-hmm. Perhaps from where you sit, what would be your message to these young entrepreneurs who are hell-bent on, I just need the funding?
Let me give an example of what has happened to other industries, to other companies that are startups in different industries. Once you get money, 2 years down the line, you hear a failure story. It's not a success story. So it's not just about the funding, and I'm sure they agree. Mm-hmm. We have to, the idea has to be very feasible, for one. Number two, the timing has to be right for the product. Number three, the team has to be, you have to get a good team to make sure that the execution is done correctly. So that there's no one that comes with mismanagement of funds later on and then the company fails. So another thing you need to do is have a network for you to meet people to feed into your idea and make it big and make it successful. Okay. Yeah, so to get all these, we need to be patient, we need to be persistent, and you need to look at it from a bigger picture, not from the seed fund angle only.
Well said.
Thank you.
Many thanks, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure we will still be engaging, and we look forward to the Innovation Week. And of course, a lot of issues to discuss, and I'm sure we'll get more time at that forum. Thank you for making time for us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've been speaking there to Joan Muridi, General Manager, Insure. We had Johnny, the second name. He is the CEO for GrowthAfrica, and we have Johnni Kjelsgaard from the Nairobi Innovation Week.